بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah we're going to get started. So today we're going to be talking about hasad, envy, and greed, hirs. But before that, last session, so I always give you guys like further readings, which is up to you guys. I mentioned Ibn Qudama's work. One thing I didn't mention, which is not even in the slide, but I added it after, was there's a section in the book Heart Therapy by Dr. Ali al-Barghouti on arrogance in the heart. So that's also a nice work. So one of the things is Ibn Qudama's work is traditional. Dr. Ali Barghouti's book is contemporary. So, it's going to be more easy to kind of digest. It's a really beautiful work. It's 40 hadiths from the heart, and he gives commentary on it. So that's just for your own note, if you guys want to check it out. So, why is it not going next? Okay, so we have our trivia, our heart trivia. Last time I asked you guys, that was easy. Maybe this is a bit more tricky, I don't know. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا جَعَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not made for a man two hearts in his interior, right? He's not made for a man two hearts inside of him. Now, the thing is in the Quran, when it addresses humanity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word nas, sometimes even bashar. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have not made for man, rajul. Any idea why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word rajul and not nas or bashar?
Is it because a woman can have a child?
Subhanallah. Good. Because a woman can have two hearts inside of her. Her heart and then the heart of the baby when she's pregnant. A man can never have it. And I won't say further, so I don't get in trouble. Okay, so we're on the disease of hasad, which is the disease of envy. Now, envy is what? When you see somebody having a blessing and you want them to lose it. Or you perceive them having a blessing, and again, you want them to lose it. That's what hasad essentially is. And the important thing to understand is, I can see somebody having a particular blessing, and I want it for myself, but I don't want them to lose it. That's not hasad. It might fall into greed, though. For example, I see Ilyas has a giant mansion. I'm like, I wish I had that mansion too. I want Ilyas to have it too, but I want it as well. I don't necessarily have hasad for him, but now I'm getting a bit greedy. So sometimes it could fall into another disease. At other times, there's no disease at all. And other times, it's praiseworthy, which it's called ghibta. Ghibta is not hasad. So what's ghibta? I see a good quality of somebody, I want it without them losing it. And the Prophet ﷺ gave the example of this. There's no hasad, he used the word hasad, but the intended meaning is ghibta, where there's a man who's given wealth. He's given wealth and he spends it in the path of Allah. So, he's giving to charity, he's giving to masajid, to madrasas, whatever it is, helping the poor. And then there's another man who is given, or a woman, a person, basically, they're given wisdom, so Islamic knowledge. And they use it to decide things. So they decide bisa and they teach others. So I see these two people and they have these qualities. One's giving sadaqah and all the time, and others has knowledge and they're benefiting people. So I want those qualities too. I don't want them to lose it. I don't want the person to lose his wealth. I don't want that person to lose their knowledge. But I want it for myself so that I can benefit the ummah. That's fine and that's praiseworthy. Even then, that, like when I want that guy who's giving wealth and he has a lot of wealth and he's giving it, I want that wealth not because I want the wealth. I want to do the good deeds. The person who has knowledge, I don't want it because I'm like, oh my God, this sheikh, he has like so many people in his halaqah and people are looking up to him, respect that. I want it because I want to benefit people, not because I want attention for myself. So that's fine, and that's not hasad. Another interesting thing to know about hasad is that every person will be afflicted with it at one point in their life. It can happen. The most pious person, it could come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Very interesting. You seek refuge from the envier when they envy. So what does this mean? You could have that feeling of envy, but you don't act upon it. You fight it. And that's what you're supposed to do. And that's just a challenge, and you'll get reward for fighting it. But when you act upon it, that's when the problem comes in, right? And amongst the signs that you have envy is that you look at that possession that that person has or whatever that person has, and in your mind, you're thinking that person doesn't deserve that. And this is something that Iblis himself had. That he saw Adam, and Allah said to the angels, prostrate to Adam, and Iblis is seeing that Adam is being honored, and he's saying, but I'm better than him. You know, why is he being honored? That's what his mindset. Okay, so like I said, the Iblis had this, that he was envious of Adam alayhi salam. And envy in its most extreme form can lead to kufr. It can lead to kufr. Because what you're essentially, your mind, what's happening is, you're saying this person doesn't deserve that blessing. So you're questioning Allah, essentially. You're saying this person get it, they didn't deserve it, Allah made a mistake. And it's very interesting that the prophets, some of them were rejected because of envy. It comes in the Quran, لولا نزل هذا القرآن على رجل من القريتين عظيم. That if only this Quran was revealed to a great man of one of the two cities. Meaning, there were some people who rejected the Prophet ﷺ because he wasn't from their, the people they considered noble. So they rejected him. They had envy him. Why did he get profited? Why didn't we get it? So this is something that is very dangerous, that it can cause, in extreme form, lead to kufr. And the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, وَلَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ فِي قَلْبِ عَبْدٍ الْإِيمَانُ وَالْحَسَدُ. Two things will never unite in the heart of a believer, of a slave of Allah. Iman, faith, and envy. So when you have Iman, it should push away envy. Now, like I said, we all can be affected by it, but it's like a disease. It could get bigger and bigger. So when it gets very big, it can push Iman out. But when it's there and it's just, lingering and getting, your Iman should be able to reduce it and reduce it. And envy is such a deadly disease that it led to the first murder in humanity. In human history, it was because of envy. It was because of envy. That Adam alayhi salam, he had two sons. One was going to get married. The other one was jealous of the person he was going to get married to. And then basically it was decided that they need to do like an offering. At that time, that was the Sharia. So one of them offered something to Allah, and another did. And the one who was jealous, he wasn't sincere in the way he was offering it. So Allah accepted the other one. He accepted basically Abel's offering. Abel is like the English biblical term. But I'll just use it to make it simple. So he accepted Abel's offering, but not Cain's. So then Cain, what did he do? The brother, he said, okay, fine. Allah didn't accept my thing. He's going to get married to us. You know what? I can't get married to her. Neither can he. Kills him. Kills him. Imagine that envy caused a brother to kill another brother. The first murder in humanity. And you see that theme recurring in the Quran. Yusuf alayhi salam, same thing happened. His brothers were jealous of him. That's really what happened. They were jealous of him and they tried to get rid of him. So this is something, a very deadly disease. So amongst the signs that somebody has envy is you want the other to be deprived of success. And you want them to lose the blessings. Even if you're like, even if I can't get it, I can't get that job, I don't want him to have it or her to have it. As long as they don't have it, it's okay. Even if I'll stay miserable, I want them to be miserable too. And you get frustrated when you see that person, the object of your envy, achieving things, getting success. And to the point where it might even come out in the way you interact, right? So in the context of social media or whatever, you'll show off because you want to show that you're better than the object of your envy. You want to belittle the person that you envy. So even, you could be in a gathering and somebody could be like, Fulan and Fulan, mashallah, they're so intelligent. I'm like, oh, they're not that intelligent, right? You just slip it in there because you don't like them, right? And the one who has envy, oftentimes, perhaps not all, starts to become obsessed with their object of their envy, right? There's like a saying, like the person's living rent-free in the person's head, you know? It's like, so, social media, again, because it's one of those things that has amplified hasad. It really has. And one of the things about social media, as you guys all know, I don't need to tell you guys this, is what essentially happens in a lot of social media platforms. I don't know about the most recent ones, but for a long time, what do people do? So last time we talked about ujab, right? Vanity in person. So a person wants to show they're great. So they're going to take snippets of their life, right? And they're curate it to make it look like they have the best life, right? Look at my amazing meal. Look at my amazing family. Look at my amazing house, my amazing people. And they're just showing they're amazing. And then you're there, and then you're seeing like hundreds of people showing that they have amazing lives. And your job sucks. You know, like you're having a tough time in school. Your family drives you crazy. And then you're like, why is my life like this? And then you start to develop that hasad, right? And the opposite is true. It's also the case where you will be posting and people are like, why is Fulan and Fulan on vacation right now, right? Why did they get that degree or whatever? So that's one of the things to consider, that envy, social media amplifies envy just like it amplifies narcissism and ujub. So now time for the names of Allah. As I mentioned, we do this every class. What do you think are some of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can reflect upon to help us cure envy? Yeah. Oh, mashallah, perfect. Yeah. So Al-Wahhab, Al-Razaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives all the time. And he also provides Al-Razaq. And Al-Wahhab, interesting enough, you know the difference between Al-Wahhab and Razaq? Oh, mashallah. Perfect, perfect. Yes, Al-Wahhab, he just gives it to you. And yeah, so I'll get to you. And then Al-Alim, so this is when you reflect upon how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives everybody. And the reality is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give that person and they can give you. They don't have to be deprived of it. You can get it. And Al-Alim, Allah knows. You don't know. Allah knows what's best. You don't know what's best. So really good. And you're going to say?
I was going to say, how is Al-Mughni different?
Well, it's related more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being, I'll have to think about it, but it's more related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being independent of creation. He doesn't need anything. But he also enriches the creation, so he allows people to be independent. It has the context of being independent of creation. But I have to think about it more to look into the nuance. Anything else? Any other names? Yeah. Allah, yeah, Allah is just. Yes, sure. Because if you know Allah is just, then because again, and the envious person is basically accusing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of being unjust, right? So yeah. Anything else? Okay. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power over everything, and yeah. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. So those are good. Those are good. So I'll go to next unless somebody wants to add. No? Oh yeah. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who withholds and he also extends. And again, it's related to his wisdom. He does it when it's, yeah.
What's the difference between envy and jealousy?
In the English language, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. English, because I guess you could use them interchangeably. But if there's like a subtle nuance, I'm sure there is in English. I don't know. So you have one, they call it a ghibta, which is what I spoke about, how you, which is you basically like something of something. It has to be something religious. Like, so the person has knowledge or they're giving sadaqah, but you don't want them to lose it. Hasad, however, you want that person to lose it. So to give you an example, let's just say you recite Quran very nice, right? So I say, mashallah, Brother Muhammad, he recites Quran very nice. I wish I could recite like him. And that's where that thought stops. Now, Brother Muhammad recites very nice. And why did Allah give him such a beautiful voice? Whereas me, I'm struggling, with my ayns and my qafs, and he shouldn't recite that nice, and he's not even a nice person. When I go say salam to him, he doesn't even. So you see the difference? One thing I'm saying, mashallah, I wish I could have it. I don't want you to lose it. The other thing is, I want you to lose it. So you guys mentioned also Al-Hakim, he's the most wise. He's Al-Karim, also that he's the most generous, right? He gives to everything. And also As-Salam, that one of the things is why we envy is, we see somebody having something that we don't have, and we think if I get that thing, I'll be at peace. The only thing that will give you peace in this life is Allah, and He's As-Salam. So those are some of the things. So you guys mentioned it really well. So be content that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-knowing, the all-wise, that He has wisdom and knowledge that we don't know. We don't know what's best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's best. And His bounties are infinite. So He could give that person, if you like it that much, ask Allah for it. That person doesn't have to lose it. They don't have to lose it. Allah can give everybody, and nobody has to lose anything. And there's another interesting thing. What you perceive something as a blessing may not be a blessing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, addressing the Prophet sallallahu فلا تعجبك أموالهم ولا أولادهم إنما يريد الله ليؤذبهم بها في الحياة الدنيا وتزهق أنفسهم وهم كافرون. That do not let their wealth or their children, speaking about disbelievers, impress you, O Prophet. Allah only intends to torment them through these things in this world, as their souls will depart while they are disbelievers. It's a very interesting ayah. One thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Prophet, don't be impressed by those who are corrupt, those who are disbelievers, those who are causing you suffering. They have wealth, they have status, they have powerful families. Don't be. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just wants to punish them with these things. In the next life, for sure, they'll die as disbelievers, but even in this life. Give you an example. A very example I think we could all understand, I think. When you look at celebrities or very rich people, you think, wow, these people have it all. And then we look deeper into their life and you realize that person who's very rich actually has a very miserable life. The fact that they're very rich, the fact that they're very famous, all the people around them, they can't tell if those people are actually genuinely their friends or they're just using them. And now their relationships are completely, they don't even know who to trust. And then their own families start backstabbing them because they want the wealth and this and that. So that wealth that they had, that thing that they had, is a means of tormenting them. So it wasn't actually a blessing. It wasn't actually a blessing. It just looks like a blessing. Does that make sense? Do you guys get it? Yeah. And then, of course, look at those less than you. انظر إلى من هو أسفل منكم ولا تنظر إلى من هو فوقكم. Prophet said, look at those beneath you, don't look at those above you in terms of this dunya. So this is something that will always keep us grounded. When we look at the fact that, social media feed comes and you see all these people doing all these things that looks like it's amazing, and you forget the fact that a big part of the world don't have access to clean water. A big part of the world go to sleep hungry, right? There are a big part of the world live in camps, refugee camps. They don't have houses. And you could go on and on. So when you reflect upon the fact that there's so many, millions and billions of people who have less than us, that allow us to appreciate what we have. We don't look at those who have more than us. The deen, the way it works, look at people who have less than you in terms of dunya, but look at people who are better than you in terms of Islam. Because when you look at people who, of course, only Allah knows what's in people's hearts, but you see through outward practice that this person looks like they're pious, then you realize you don't become self-righteous. You realize, man, I have so much more to do, right? So this is the principle. And unfortunately, a lot of times people kind of flip it around. And that's why they end up becoming miserable, right? Because they're constantly looking at people who have more than them in this dunya. And then to make themselves feel better, they look at, like criminals and the worst people and like, okay, I'm okay. I'm not a serial killer. I can't be that bad. right? So look at those who are less than you. Next, do not concern yourself with things not related to you. There's a beautiful hadith. من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعني. From the part of the perfection of one's Islam is to leave that which does not concern him. Scholars mention this is one of the hadiths that's amongst the principles of the religion. If you apply this, this is an essential part of your religion, and it's such a basic principle, and it's such an amazing principle. You know, as they say, mind your business, right? Again, going back, because of social media and everything, everybody's in everybody's business now, right? Everybody is knowing what this person is doing, what that person is doing. To a certain extent, it's not healthy for you to know what everybody else is doing. It's really not, and it won't benefit you. You know what? This person had dinner last night, and this person where they go out the week before, or whatever. You know, back in the day, people would learn from this through gossip, right? Now it's just social media. Everybody's pushing it. You need to control what's coming inside your heart. You don't really, when you think about it, and this is one of the things to reflect upon, the things that you are putting inside of you, is it actually benefiting you? Right? And learning about other people's lives, it's not going to benefit you, right? To a large extent. There's certain things that you can learn, for sure. And of course, when you're with friends, you're curious, but I'm talking about constantly being feeded what everybody's doing all the time. It's not something that's healthy. So this is something you need to prioritize what gets your attention. And cut out trying to find out what everybody else is doing in their lives. And focus on your life and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So amongst the means to also treat envy is you should recognize that if you have that envy inside of you and you don't treat it, it's gonna grow. You're gonna get depressed, and you're gonna get resentment. And as I mentioned, if it goes really bad, it can lead to kufr. But even from the psychological perspective, you're not gonna feel happy. Envy doesn't make you feel happy. It makes you actually miserable. And the thing is, when a person's envious, it's not affecting the object of the envy. You're just being, it's like you hate somebody, you drink poison, and you think that something's gonna happen to them. You're the one who's gonna get sick. That person's just gonna go on with their lives. So this is one thing to recognize, and envy will harm you in this life because it prevents you from being productive and being happy, and it will harm your akhirah as well. So I'm telling you these things. These are more preventative, and it's just but what happens? You came across somebody, and that feeling of envy starts to come now, and now it's there, right? You just, whatever, it happened, and now you can't get it out. So one of the things is, as I mentioned, to reflect upon the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also the feeling of envy is that you want that person to lose that blessing. So to fight that, you make dua to Allah, or Allah bless them and increase them in that. You're counteracting that feeling. So Allah mazid wa barik, right? This person, they have, this job that I couldn't get. Allah blessed them in that job. Make dua for them. This will help counteract it. And the beautiful thing about this idea of making dua for the object of your envy, and also make dua to Allah to remove that envy from you, but make dua good for that person. And the beautiful thing about this, you make dua for that person, as it comes in hadith, that any time a believer makes dua for another believer, another Muslim in their absence, an angel will be like, and for you the same. So the angel is going to make dua for the things that you're making dua for that other person, right? And of course, an angel makes dua for you, subhanallah. Okay, and then another thing is, when you have that feeling of envy, use it as a means of self-improvement to better yourself. What does that mean? Again, let's give an example. You're in a job, and then your colleague gets a promotion and you don't get a promotion. Now, there's two ways of approaching this. One is, why did they get a promotion? I worked harder. I've been in the company longer. I'm smarter, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, they don't deserve it. That's not healthy. Well, you could be like, okay, they got it. Let me like look at to see what I can improve. So that way I could get a promotion. And then maybe I won't get a promotion here, but I could build my portfolio and I could go to a better company eventually, right? So use it as a means of bettering yourself. And then when you see that somebody is blessed with something, as you guys already mentioned, the names, attributes of Allah, always reflect upon your own blessings. And it goes back to that thing when you look at people less than you, that they should remind you that I have so many blessings that other people don't have, right? So that's, I think, don't ever forget your own blessings. When you start to be, I think, well, why does this person think, okay, well, I have so many things that other people don't have. And of course, so this is related to if you have envy, how to protect yourself from envy, right? Because envy is something, it's really interesting that it's something that's mentioned in the Quran to seek refuge from. And it's something that, Surah Falaq and Nas, which we all learned when we were kids, you look into the Sunnah, you say it a lot throughout the day. If you look into Sunnah, how many times you say it, you can say it in terms of the Sunnah. So, recite Surah Falaq and Nas, and of course Surah Ikhlas as well, so the three calls, and those are things to say. Surah Falaq in particular mentions the concept of envy. So those are things to recite, actually to recite. There's also a dua of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, Bismillah alladhi la yudurru masmihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samai huwa as-sami'ul alim. That if you say this dua 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, it will protect you not only from envy, but any affliction. So this is a dua that, and there's more stuff. I'm just giving you some basics. And, if you get those apps about the dua and adhkar, you'll find more. Okay, so further reading. Again, Ibn Qudama's work. I'm going to be referring to him a lot in terms of further reading. He has a section on malice and envy. There's a book, just one whole book on envy. Darul Salam Publishers, they're a well-known publishing company. So they have one book just about envy, and their books are very easy to read. So it's just, that. And okay, so I know I talk a lot about social media, and I always like diss it up. And some of it might be my own opinion because I'm like old or I don't know. So if you want a more like balanced view on how to kind of deal with social media, there's a guy named Omar Osman. He wrote a book 2-3 years ago called Fiqh of Social Media. So what he does is he gives you kind of like the principles, Islamic principles that you need to take and how to gauge in social media. So it's a very balanced book, and it gives you principles on how to deal with social media. So if I see something by the end of this series that you get the sense that you have to stop social media completely, that's maybe my bias. This will give you a more balanced view. So next, we're going to talk about hirs, greed. And greed is obvious, it's basically being obsessed with wealth in this dunya and material things. It's very obvious what greed is. And it's very interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ بَطِرَتْ مَعِيشَتَهَا. Imagine how many societies we have destroyed that they had destroyed, that had been spoiled by their comfortable living. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed certain societies, and these societies corrupted themselves because of their comfort, because they were indulged in greed, in materialism. And there's a very interesting scholar, Ibn Khaldun. Has anybody heard of Ibn Khaldun? Yeah? And you heard his theory of the rise and fall of civilizations? Can you guys mention it? Or shall I? No?
Is it about how good times create weakness?
Exactly. So basically, in a nutshell, I mean, it's been a while since I read it, but the gist of it is basically civilizations start where you have people that are rough living, like nomads. They have really rough living, so they're hard workers. They're tough. They know how to work and sacrifice. So with that mentality, they end up building their communities, their societies, and eventually civilization empires, because they're tough and they do it. But as the society progresses, the empire progresses, a lot of wealth starts to come in. The first people had rough life, so they were tough. Now there's a lot of wealth that comes in, so those people who had a rough life are gone, and now the new people are used to comfort. They're used to luxury. So they're not used to the hard life of the founders of that civilization. So now, because they're used to that comfort, they become lazy, they become corrupt, they become weak. And then another group of people outside of this empire who are, used to that rough lifestyle will end up taking them over. And that civilization begins to crumble. So essentially, when a civilization gets used to comfort, it's the beginning of the decline of that civilization. And there's a lot of examples of this. I mean, I think he hit it on, Allahu Alam, and it seems like you could find those principles in the Quran as well. But Allah knows best. Okay, so there's another term. So there's different words for greed. One is hirs, another is shuh. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that whoever is saved from the selfishness of their own soul, they are those who are successful. Now, just to explain this term, it's related to hirs, but it has some specific connotations. Shuh. So shuh is greed, but it's a greed that will lead you to become stingy. It's a greed that will lead you to envy others. And it's a greed that will lead you to hate others who have what you perceive as good. So it's very specific, but they're both connected. And the Prophet said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالشُّحْ فَإِنَّمَا هَلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ بِالشُّحْ that beware of this greed, for it was only greed that destroyed those before you. Very interesting. And it commanded them to be miserly, and they did so. It commanded them to sever family ties, and they did so. It commanded them to behave wickedly, and they did so. Greed. Greed was what led those nations to basically crumble. And it's interesting, when you study like empires and kingdoms, you see at one point a lot of empires, like they were at their peak, and at one point you have the royal family, and it's really crazy when you read about the history of the royal families in so many different kingdoms. At one point, it's just like one family member trying to kill the other, one family member plotting against the other, and it's just like this whole mess, like drama that everybody's trying to plot against each other. And it says that it will get you to cut ties. And in our times, you could even see this, where subhanallah, because of greed, look, so you have now the family systems breaking down. And one of the things is you have parents who don't want to take care of their kids, right? So basically the husband and wife, they just have a kid and they're like, okay, but we want to continue getting our nice house, we want to go on vacation every week. Every week, well, like every year or whatever. And we want to get the fancy car. So our kid's born, but now we both can't work, but we'll just put our kid in daycare. And by the way, I'm not talking about people that like they don't have a choice. I'm talking about people who they're used to a certain lifestyle. So they put their kid in daycare. Or the kid's just born. They're like a few months and they put in daycare. And now they're not raising their kid, right? They're just busy working. They have no relationship with their kid. They get old now. The kid has more relationship with the people who raise them in the daycare than their parents. Now they're old, they need their kid to take care of them. The kid's like, I have my career now. And then he puts them in an old folks home. And again, don't misquote me, like there are people who need to work, and I'm talking about people who just do it out of greed. And really the family system is breaking down. I think we can all agree that this is something that's happening in Western society. There's a hadith where the Prophet said, "Ma dhibani ja'ani ursila fi ghanamin bi afsada laha min hirs al-mar'i ala al-mali wash-sharafi li dinihi." That two wolves roaming freely among a flock of sheep. If you have sheep and they're going, and you have two wolves, what's going to happen? They're just going to devour those sheep, kill them, massacre them, and eat them. He says they're less destructive than the greed a man has for wealth and fame to his religion. That if you have this greed for wealth and fame inside of you, this will destroy your religion. In another hadith, the Prophet said that I don't fear poverty for you. Wallahu la al-faqra asha alaykum. I don't fear poverty for you. What did he say? I fear that you will get the world. You will get the world. And then you will compete for it, like those who competed for you. And the word is tanafasu. If you look in the Quran, that word is used in the context of competing for the akhirah. And the Prophet said, you will compete but for this world. But it will destroy you just like it destroyed those before you. It's very interesting. And it goes back to when people say, when there's all these theories, right? Well, what's the problem of the ummah? What are the issues related to the weakness of the ummah? And people say, we don't have money, we don't have political power, we don't have da, da, da. We have money. The Muslim world is rich, but our priorities are not there, and our greed for this world has caused so much corruption in the ummah. In one hadith, the Prophet said that the son of Adam grows old, but only there are also two desires that grow old with them, which are love for wealth and the desire for a long life. In another hadith, the Prophet said, though, that if the son of Adam had a mountain full of gold, he'll want another mountain full of gold. And the only thing that will satiate insan is the dust of their grave. You're going to keep wanting. You're going to keep wanting. It's not going to fulfill you. Right? So, the signs for greed are obvious, I think. Just nonstop desires. You get frustrated if your desires are not fulfilled, to the point we are willing to do haram for those desires. And one example of this is people willing to do get haram income or take interest-based loans for no valid reason, just because they want their big house, right? Or they want to, their fancy car or whatever. That's all it is. They don't care about what the rules of Islam says about these things. They just want to have those things. And the greedy person is constantly searching for more, and they're not grateful for what they have because they're constantly thinking of what they don't have. And the nature of people in general is how you are as a person will cause you to gravitate towards other people. So if your inclination is toward Allah and the Akhirah, eventually you'll start inclining towards people like you. But if you are a materialistic person, you're going to incline towards other materialistic people. And those are the people that you're going to want to hang around with. And greed, you're willing to forsake your religious obligations while seeking material gains. So I'll give you this example. You get a job. You get two job offers. One job, you can go, you can pray your Jummah, you can pray your Salat, you can practice your religion. And it's a good environment. The other job, you can't pray your Jummah, you can't practice your Salat, but the salary is $20,000 more than the other one. So now you have a choice. You get paid $20,000 less, but you could practice your religion, or get that $20,000 extra, but you can't pray. Then you're thinking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, it's fine, I'll give sadaqah, whatever. So you take the one with the $20,000. This is greed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you halal income, but it's less, but you're opting for this because you want more and you're willing to forego the basic rights Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has on you, which is salah. And then extravagance is one of the signs of greed, which is a separate disease, which we'll talk about. So how to treat greed, health. One is to remember death. As the Prophet said, remember often the destroyer of pleasures, by which he meant death. All right? That your mansions, your fancy cars, your fancy clothes, none of that you will take with you to the grave. Right? And when you remember just that person who had the biggest mansion and that person who was homeless on the street, the end, they're both under the grave. Right? So remember that. This will keep things in perspective, and the afterlife. And this already mentioned about envy, to look at people less than you, and look at people, not look at people who have more than you, and to be grateful, right? See, the key to happiness, as the Prophet said, that happiness is not in having a lot, happiness is in ghina nafs, it's in the richness of the soul. When you appreciate what you have, you'll be happy. But if you don't appreciate what you have, you're constantly going to want more and more. So one of the things to reflect upon the things you have. Okay, and this is something I think relevant for the society that we're in, that look at your spending patterns and kind of evaluate, are you one of those people who are obsessed with buying, and maybe reduce your spending? This is kind of related more to modern consumer society, right, that we are in, where, you know, the society we're in, it pushes us shop until you drop, right? Drop dead, right? Just keep consuming. The nature of the societies that we're in, this consumer-based society, is people feel empty inside, and they're saying, you buy this product and you'll feel like the best person. And you buy and you maybe you get a bit of high, and then you go to the next high. Nothing you buy is going to make you feel happy. The thing that will make you feel content is your connection with Allah, right? So just evaluate, your non-essential things, and think about that. Also, when you keep company of the righteous, to remind you of these things. It's very important to keep company of the righteous. Just like bad company will, the thing is, if you're around materialistic people, they're going to affect you, right? Like, so you could be a simple person, and they come out with I don't know, they'll ask you all the time, hey, you just got your job, or you're only making 50,000. I'm making 100K, right? And then they start making you feel a certain way, right? There are people like that. Even Muslims, I mean, so-called practicing Muslims will constantly remind you of the dunya, constantly remind you, make you fixate on the dunya. But you need to keep company with people who remind you of the akhirah, of the next life. So that's one thing to keep in mind. There's a nice, basically, I think I mentioned in the last series, one of the rulers, I think it was Harun Rashid. So he was coming, and he was a ruler, right? So he had a lot of wealth. And then one of the pious Muslims, Samaki, basically came to him, and I believe it was Harun Rashid, but one of the rulers. So this pious person said, the ruler got thirsty. So he said, I need a glass of water. So this pious person said, if you were prevented from getting water, would you give up half your kingdom? And he said, yeah, I would, because if you don't get water, you're going to die eventually, right? So he said, okay. So then he got the water and he drank it. And then the pious person said, if you were prevented from releasing this water, meaning having to go to the bathroom, would you give up half your kingdom to be able to release it? He said, yes, I would. Because again, if you have a sickness where you can't release it, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. It's not a pleasant thing. So then he said, what good is your kingdom when it's not even worth a glass of water? SubhanAllah. Yeah. And there's an interesting, I'm going to paraphrase it. I don't want to, I don't know the exact saying, but Imam Ghazali said something most to the fact that patience makes slaves into kings, and desires makes kings into slaves. Like pious people, if you're pious, if you have Allah, you're free. You're free. It doesn't matter if you have the most simple living, you're free and you're happy. You have your kingdom. You could be the biggest king, but if you're greedy, if you're a slave to your desires, you're going to be miserable and you'll be a slave to this world. Okay, another thing, fasting is something to increase. Because, fasting, essentially what you're doing, you're stopping yourself from the basics, food and water and these things. So it helps you kind of control your desires and your greed. And actually there's interesting, but I won't do it in this series, but Ibn Qudama, Imam Ghazali, and Imam Jawzi and others have sections in their books where they call it breaking the two desires, eating as well as sexual desires. And they have a whole section just on that. And one of the things is related to fasting, that, things to do, because those desires are very powerful. And the ultimate, like the fundamental desire, which you build everything off of, is basically eating and drinking, right? And then from that, everything goes. If you're starving, you're not going to think about any, if you're starving, you're not going to be thinking about getting designer clothes. You just want food. Increasing your sadaqah. So the greedy person just wants more and more. To counteract that, give more and more. Give. By give, don't don't go shopping, right? Like Give more meaning, give to like, people in need, poor people, or, for the masjid or whatever it is. Find a cause that you can relate to where people are in need and give. And reduce your exposure to images that will increase greed. Again, it goes back to not only social media, but we're living in a society where you're bombarded by dunya everywhere. Dunya, everywhere, just calling you. So these are things you need to control. And it's very interesting, and I've mentioned this in other sessions. The Quran mentions controlling our gaze in two contexts. One is in relation to the opposite gender, and the other is control your gaze in relation to the dormant of this world. Because the eyes are the gate to the heart. So the more you expose yourself, the more it will just enter. So you need to be conscious of these things. And okay, so actually there's one or two more slides and I'm done. There's an interesting dua. And it's interesting because I wasn't sure to put it, but then I saw there's some weakness in it. Sheikh Al-Albani and others said this, it's fine. There's some weakness, but it's fine. It's not as jayyid. So it's a dua that the Prophet ﷺ added to him, where the dua goes, "Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from a evil neighbor, and from a spouse that causes my hair to turn gray before old age, and from a child who becomes a master over me." And that's a very interesting statement, because one of the signs of the end of time is related to that, but that's another topic. But this is interesting. وَمِن مَالٍ يَكُونُ عَلَيَّ عَذَابًا. And from wealth that turns into a torment upon me, a punishment upon me. Right? You could have wealth that will torment you. You won't be able to sleep, but you're so greedy, all you're thinking about is wealth. Have you seen those guys? They're like, what are they called? They're like in stocks or trade or Wall Street, whatever it is. And they're like billionaires. And then they lose $1 million. They're still millionaires, but they want to commit suicide. I mean, they're still richer than like majority of the world, but they can't handle it. So it's a very interesting hadith. And that's why one of the things we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the du'as we say is, "Oh Allah, I ask you for ilman nafiya, beneficial knowledge, wa rizqan tayyiba, and pure risk." Not a lot of risk. You're asking Allah, give me, you're saying pure risk. Because you could have little risk, but when if it's pure and Allah puts barakah in it, it's the best thing. And then, because we were talking about envy too, this part's interesting too. وَمِنْ خَلِيلٍ مَاكٍ عَيْنَهُ تَرَانِي وَقَلْبُهُ يَرْآنِي. And from a close companion that is cunning, whose eyes are upon me and whose heart is scheming against me. Wow. It's a very interesting dua I relate to. And, they're going to post so you guys could learn it if you want. Okay, so I'm done. I just mentioned two other things. Ibn Qayyim, he mentions, so we covered now ujab, kibr, hasad, and hirs. So pride, vanity, pride, envy, and greed. Ibn al-Qayyim says that pride, hasad, and hirs are usul al-sayyi'at. They're the foundational sins. He says that these are the foundational sins in which other sins come from. And it's interesting, of course, he was like, as I mentioned, first session, they consider him the scholar of the heart. So he has insight in what he's saying. I still have to wrap my head around it, but I thought I would share it because he is like, literally one of the greatest scholars of our history. And in particular on Tazkiyah, he's written amazing works. So one of the things that's mentioned is kibr led Iblis to kufr. Arrogance led Iblis to kufr. Hasad led Adam's sons to kill each other. And hirs led Adam alayhi salam to take from the forbidden tree. Now I'm just going to explain this so you don't misunderstand it. Adam was in Jannah. He can have everything, just not that one tree. But he wants it. However, understand that he didn't purposely disobey Allah. He had forgot. So, and he made tawbah. So it's not like, I don't know what the Christian perspective on this is, or the Bible where he might have done it purposely. He didn't do it purposely. He had that desire, and Shaitan tricked him, and he went, but he didn't purposely disobey Allah. He forgot. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him. Right? So I just found it interesting that Ibn Qayyim mentions these three things. So for further reading, again, Ibn Qudama's work, pages 97 to 107, You know, and then again, Dr. Ali Al-Barghouti, he has a chapter on greed in the heart. So that's it for today.